Hey everybody, hope you guys are all having a great day. I made some changes to my microphone, so let me know if I sound fine here, and we will get started. A lot of things to cover today. Um, I've shifted into, all right, let's start looking at important levels to see, where we can expect reversals, potential lows. So, that's going to be kind of the theme of the stream today is, let's see where we're at and let's kind of see, um, where we should be watching because, I see here on the timeline, a lot of people started turning really bearish. A lot of people, that have been bearish, maybe looking at potential entries. So, I think it's an interesting point. Obviously, not the most fun time, but hey, it's part of the game. And I think that this is a very interesting scenario we're in right now. And I'm ready to break it down in a pretty good way. For all you guys that have watched me over the last, few months, um, we shared a lot of evidence that things were potentially shaky. Um, so I think the first thing that we'll do is kind of look kind of in the past of like, hey, how do we get here? Um, just as a educational point. And then I'll shift kind of more into like, all right, let's see what I'm watching. Specifically, a few things I looked at earlier today, that I haven't looked at in many, many months. So I'm excited to share those things. And as usual, feel free to throw in chats. Definitely love to take questions. So don't hold back anything you want me to look at or elaborate on. And yeah, so I think that the first thing here is, we watched Bitcoin here over the last month and a half. I did a few streams within this. I think my last stream was like right here somewhere. And, essentially, this kind of set us up in a very interesting way. And the reason why is because if we look right here, I don't know if you guys remember, but when we had this breakout right here, we saw the most amount of short liquidations in over 6 months. And essentially, what that did is that took out so many people that were in shorts in this range that thought that they were just going to get a free ride down to, basically where we're at now. So what happened here is, people got very excited, and of course, it's a point where you have to pay attention because yes, we did break a multi-month resistance, but the reason why a lot of us were a little bit on edge because of that move was simply because of this fractal. And as I've said, guys, I'm not a big fractal guy, but I will look at them and consider them. And this one kind of just shared a very similar feeling. And the reason why is, if we put the yearly VWAP on here, and once again, if you guys have watched me for a while on X, you guys know that I'm a big fan of these things. And essentially, we had the same exact setup to where, you know, we basically went and did an underside retest of that rejection, of that VWAP, took out a bunch of shorts, just like we did in 2022, and then down we go. You couldn't have asked for a better fractal. Um, honestly, very, very, very interesting. And like I said, I just want to share this part because, for those of you that maybe were a little bit confused on why this happened, it's always good to look in hindsight. And obviously, hindsight's very easy to say, like, this happened, that happened. But at the end of the day, these were things that we were talking about and we were aware of. So, it's useful to kind of look at, okay, how do we get here and what to watch for next? Um, and just overall the structure here, this put in something we call a failed auction. All of you guys watching should remember this. Very powerful setup. Essentially what happens is you draw one of these volume profiles. I like to use the fixed range right here. You can kind of draw it wherever, and this is going to show you volume based on price instead of time. I'm sure many of you guys see volume down here. That's called time-based volume. This is called price-based volume. It's a very, very effective tool. And essentially what happened is we were in this consolidation period for, 2, 3 months almost. We broke out, you know, we broke out fully. And this is the point where buyers need to step in and say, okay, let's now auction prices back up to another level. And then right when it failed, that's kind of when I sounded the alarm and said, this is a classic setup. And it's actually proven to be about 80% accurate. Meaning if you see a consolidation phase like this, you break out of one of these top levels and then you re-accept back in, at this point, there's an 80% chance you're going to go back down to that lower value area. And sure enough, we did that. And then once we broke that, look what's happened since. The complete floor has been falling out. So that's just a quick view of kind of how we got here. Obviously, we could go back even farther and look at when, there were warning signs up here, but it's not too relevant. I think right here was the point where many people were still bullish up here. And, I took a very cautionary approach, and I'm just explaining to you guys why. So you guys can use the same tools, the same, simple approach that I do, using VWAPs, using volume profiles, and simply just kind of putting the picture together that this move took out so many shorts, right? So what that did is that took out everybody that thought they were going to get a free ride here. And anybody that wanted to enter shorts, they were able to do it right here because there were so many short liquidations. And when you get liquidated on a short, you're basically market buying back into the market. So anyone who had limit orders here, resting for shorts, they got filled very easily from all the shorts that got liquidated. So it was kind of just like, in hindsight, the perfect setup. The biggest trap. We call this a bull trap. Biggest trap ever. Trapped a bunch of bulls up here, and since fucking almost 32% in, what is that? That's January 15th. So almost 2.5 weeks. Pretty crazy thing, super, super crazy thing here. So yeah, and then, if we look at this fractal here, this would be the point that we would start seeing, if it's going to continue to fall a little bit, we should start seeing some, some tapering off here. But, I'm not going to go too heavy on that because you guys are going to see what my overall theory and thoughts are about kind of where we're at. So let's pop over here to, what was the first thing I wanted to show here? First thing, I guess, is we'll shift right kind of into what I wanted to share, on this stream was the big thing. Back in 2023, in January, this was 2-3 months after FTX low, FTX, fell and crashed. I made this post, and at this point, I was very confident that a low was in on Bitcoin. And this post I've had pinned forever just because it was a good post and it marked the bottom perfectly, right? We go through here. The major thing that I used on this post was a trend line. This very clear trend line right here. This trend line told me one thing. It told me that Bitcoin needs to bottom out here or we got some big problems ahead. Okay? That was the first thing. The second thing here is I used a logarithmic MACD. Third thing here is I used an RSI. Fourth thing, I used Bitcoin fees. And then fifth thing, I used basically the halving stock to flow ratio, which is basically just days until the halving. So I just wanted to breeze through those so you guys see. It wasn't just this trend line, but that was kind of the main point of the post. And, we've talked about this a lot, and many people are questionable about trend lines. Just my total 3 analysis that I posted here, over the last month. I think I posted this, what was this, early January. All it was a trend line. I basically shared and I said, hey, this is a bearish setup. When you break a multi-year trend line and you turn it into resistance, it's time to pay attention. And technically it's a bearish, we're in bearish territory until you can get back above that. Sure enough, look at this point now, total 3 is down, most alts are down 30-some% since then. We look at this, 25%. So that's just kind of to share that, like, trend lines, you guys got to realize they are so simple, but they are so powerful. So like anybody watching, you guys see me do the most detailed analysis using order flow, order books, VWAPs. But at the end of the day, I still go back to my roots of trend lines. And I say that because back in 2017, when I learned how to analyze this market, I was always using trend lines and RSI and MACD, like the basic things that people like to use. The one thing that I still use are trend lines. And the reason why is because they are so accurate and nothing has changed about them. They still have such a powerful level of analysis. And like I said, people say, oh, that's too simple, this and that. So my main point here is I woke up this morning and, I saw Bitcoin here and I said, okay, we're starting to get down to levels that I've looked at. We're starting to get down to 60s, potentially 50s. And these are the levels that I've thought have been a very high probability that a low would come in. And once again, we got all these people on X, saying, 30K, 40K, and they got reasons to say that, sure. But personally, and you guys that have watched me now for, many months, I've been very vocal that I don't think Bitcoin's going to drop as low as it has in the past. I don't think so. Despite even the 30% move we had in the past month, I still believe there's more evidence to say that Bitcoin is going to bottom out somewhere in this 50 to 60K range. Because if not, we got some big problems ahead, and this is exactly what this trend line is going to show. So let me pull it up here. This was the post that I made that, we got a 3,000-day trend line that is, going to decide the fate of Bitcoin, and I truly believe it. So this morning I woke up, and right when I saw this on my pinned post, I said, oh wait, I need to go look at this trend line. I haven't redrawn this trend line in like, a year or two. Like I haven't looked at this because it's been irrelevant. So I went back and I drew this trend line, and sure enough, where does it land? It lands exactly where I've thought a low would come in. And once again, guys, we're talking about a 3,000-day trend line. Let me draw this here. As right now, this is 3,200 days. So this isn't just something we pulled out of our back pocket, This is a massive, massive trend line. And essentially what this did is this cemented my idea that Bitcoin needs to bottom out somewhere in this zone, or Bitcoin's future is very grim. And I know that's going to be crazy to say. And I know people say, oh, well, look, it could break it and then regain it, this and that. Sure. But if you guys remember when I pulled up this trend line back on Ethereum, I forget when this was here. This was a long time ago, but let me see if I can redraw it here. Pretty sure it was this right here. Was it? No, it was this one right here. Get this magnet tool out of here. This is just going to give you guys kind of an idea of what I mean by this. Let me see if I can clear out this other stuff here. 1 second. So essentially, very similar concept here on Ethereum. Back in August of 24, I posted this chart. If we put on a higher time frame, it'll be a lot cleaner. I posted this chart, and let's do a replay here. So this is all that I saw, okay? I posted this chart, and I basically said something very similar. I said Ethereum's got a 2,000-3,000 day trend line, and it just retested it as resistance. This is not a good setup. Sure enough, after this happened, what happened? Ethereum dropped at a massive rate. We're talking, if this can speed up here. Ethereum proceeded the next, what was it, 2, 3, 4 months to drop from its high. I think it was close to, 70%, right? And since then, Ethereum has still not regained that trend line. And look, what's happened since then? It's been in a very bearish scenario. It's been a very bearish territory, right? And it was all from me saying this trend line has been lost, right? We go back here to Bitcoin, and this to me is even way stronger than the Ethereum one, right? Way, way stronger. And we look at this and we say, okay, this trend line is pure as day. People that know how to draw a trend line, you guys can see. Like we're not trying to like draw this out of thin air. This is like the cleanest you can get on a trend line. And once again, this was the main thing that allowed me to pick the Pico bottom of the last bottom. At 16K, I made this thread, and this is when I bought back all my crypto. And obviously that was a very good thing in hindsight. So I look now and I say, okay, we're reaching this level, right? And we have this massive trend line here. And once again, I'm sure many people that are watching right now are going to say in their head, well, it's just a trend line, it doesn't mean much. I don't mess with trend lines of this size anymore. I learned my lesson. I've used them for so long. I don't mess with trend lines of this size. If Bitcoin accepts below this trend, I'm very confident that Bitcoin is in a sense cooked. I don't know if this means down here Sailor starts selling, we go back down to 15, 20K. But for the most part, what I'm saying is that Bitcoin's got a bottom in the next 15%. Like we're talking, we drop right now, we got about 15%. I'll give it room for a little quick multi-day wick that happens below. But for the most part, Bitcoin needs to bottom within the next 15%, or I think we need to head for the doors. And that doesn't mean that Bitcoin's cooked forever, but it would mean that like we got multi-years, potentially 5 years, in my honest opinion, of when this thing could recover. And at that point with AI and just quantum, I mean, it's going to be a whole different story. So I'm making it very clear. And one other thing I was, this morning when I was looking at this, I said, okay, what would confirm my thoughts here? Sure enough, I put a VWAP at the low. Look where that VWAP lands right now, the exact point of that trend line. So we got two pieces of powerful confluence to tell us that Bitcoin should be bottoming in the mid 50s, low 60s. And if it doesn't, I'm going to be heading for the door. and I don't own any Bitcoin right now, but I'm gonna be heading for the door in the sense like I don't want to see what happens after that. And it's a very grim thing to say, but like at this point, with everything that we've talked about, with how Bitcoin's grown this cycle, how it's done it in a very stable manner, how retail was not even really, they weren't even really involved. Altcoins didn't see anything crazy. Most of the altcoins, I mean, look at others, it didn't do anything, didn't even get near its 2021 high. Like if we put that all together and we also say, no, Bitcoin's going down to 30, 40K, doesn't add up. It does not add up. So for me, honestly, I'm starting to stack bids, because to me, this is like that home run you got to take. You got to take the risk. I think you got to put your hands out right here, over the next few days, next few weeks, maybe month or two, because what can happen is we can bottom, see something back up to like 80K, and then come back and do it here back in like April, May potentially, or March. But yeah, I mean, this is, I can't be more stern about my thoughts with this, guys. Like, yeah, I hope this makes sense. Feel free to throw your thoughts in. Would love to hear people's thoughts. And like I said, it's probably funny for some of you guys. You guys see me do the most detailed analysis ever, using millions of data points, order flow this, or heat map this. And here I am putting so much emphasis on a 3,000-day trend line. That's just because I feel it. It's a part intuition as well. I feel it, that it's like the way that this has all happened here, the way that Bitcoin's RSI happened this cycle, how it didn't see any strong move. Like the strongest RSI we saw was back in February 24, but then we went higher for a year and a half, and the RSI did this, right? And that didn't happen these last cycles. It's just been so much different, and it just adds up to me. It adds up to me. And the one thing that really put it home for me was what I used back in 23. We're talking 3 years ago now, over 3 years ago. The RSI hit the same level it hit on every single cycle bottom on the 2-week chart. So once again, what did I do this morning? I said, all right, well, let's throw up the 2-week chart and let's see what's going on with the RSI. Sure enough, it's at that exact level that I shared here back in 2023, that every single cycle low has been put in on. You can see 2016 cycle low put in here, 2018 cycle low put in here, 2022 cycle low put in here. Look where the RSI is. So I hope that this makes sense, guys, how it's like, it's kind of like, these people think like, oh yeah, this bear market just started, this and that. All the evidence I'm seeing right here tells me, no, this bear market needs to stop like now, or else we're cooked. And like I said, I don't know if that means Bitcoin just goes down to 20K, 15, but I'm telling you, based on everything I've seen for the past 9 years, I started trading and looking at crypto right here. I've watched every single one of these moves. I've nearly predicted every single high and low besides this one. I got caught off guard. It was my first cycle. And seeing this trend line and saying, okay, you got a growth trend like this. It's worked on the last 2 cycle bottoms. The RSI is at the same point that it was in the last 2 cycle bottoms. See where we're at here. And the price is almost there. To me, this is the low, or else we're looking at much bigger problems. So I hope that makes sense. I know it's a very strong, firm view, but I just showed you guys all the evidence of why I should have that strong, firm view. There's not really anything that's like up for question here. This analysis isn't really like subjective. It's very objective. What I'm saying is we have a very clear RSI level that has worked on the 2-week chart. It's never failed. We have a very clear trend line. We have a very clear VWAP. And to kind of zoom in even more, we have a very clear level of why it would bottom out here. Look at of the 2021 high. Let's draw a level here. Let's even go a little bit lower, because I'd consider that these were false breakouts. You guys kind of see what I mean here? We have a big consolidation structure. We have a double tap from 4 or 5 years ago. We have a 3,000-day trend line. We have an RSI, at least on the 2-week chart, that's at a level that has always produced a cycle low. And then we also have the VWAP in the trend line. Put all those together, wouldn't it be crazy for me not to be saying this? You know, hope it makes sense. I hope it's clear. I hope it's clear to you guys. I want to break it down in the clearest way. And really my thoughts, you know, let's, irrespective of looking at any other alts, you know, they just going to dirty up the process. One other thing I will throw in here, just as more confirmation for you guys, is, you know, this morning as well, when I was doing some analysis, I was going through all my unique pairings on Bitcoin, right? And the ones that I really liked were Bitcoin Coffee. Once again, you guys can laugh all you want. It's very, very useful to look at these type of unique denominations. And sure enough, it kind of confirms the same thing I'm saying. We got a perfect trend line. This is the same trend line that we're talking about here, but it's just on a, you know, unique denomination. And look, it's about a 15% move, maybe a little bit less, about 14, 15% move. Perfectly predicts, perfectly lines up with all of them. The other thing, the Dow Jones, you know, one of the biggest, strongest indexes in history. You know, it's been around for over 100 years. You know, if we pair it with that, it's very similar. You know, this one's a little bit tighter. We probably only have about 5% to move down there, 5, 7%, but similar concept. You know, we're within, when we're talking 5, 10%, it's, you know, that's kind of just variance. That's not really like, hey, it needs to be perfect. So we put this all together, and I think the picture's clear. Bitcoin's bottoming here, or we're screwed. And I hate to be like that, but we're screwed, because I don't know what happens to Bitcoin after that. If we're going to break a 3,000-day trend after Saylor owns, you know, 50 billion, and after all these institutions got involved, how all these ETFs are available, how gold just exploded, and we're not going to hold all of these levels, I am, you know, I probably won't be bidding for a while. You know, I'm not going to be looking to bid 40s and 30s. I'll be looking to bid a lot lower, because I think at this point, this marks a structural shift since 2017. And since then, 2017, we've had a growth period, right? We're going to break this level. I'm not going to be looking for entries. I'm not going to be looking for entries. So hopefully that makes sense, guys. Let's see if you guys got any questions. It's definitely wild in hindsight. It looks so obvious, without a doubt. We're cooked. Bitcoin break the trend line. In your opinion, does that indicate Bitcoin might lose its #1 spot? No, I don't think so, because every other coin is going to be in the shitter. You know, every other coin is going to be in a very bad place, because I don't think anything else has got strong enough. You know, it doesn't have anything that's like holding it up more than Bitcoin. Bitcoin's got the largest liquidity out of anything. Who do you think is selling? It feels like it could be simple-minded OGs following the fractal 3,000-day trend line. I think who's selling is just, it's panic selling at this point. It's panic selling. It's people seeing other assets do well. I don't think that these are OGs selling. I saw a metric the other day that says only 6% of total ETF inflows on Bitcoin have left, meaning that 94% of people that have bought the Bitcoin ETF are still holding. So once again, that's parked money. It's exactly as I predicted back when these things launched in 24. I said it many times. I said this is going to be parked money. This is not money that goes in and out. This is money that goes in and it stays there. So if you put that all together, yeah, I mean, you could say it's OGs. You can say it's, you know, just people that are just scared. But you guys got to realize something here. We look at these order books right here. Let's clean these out a little bit. We look at these order books right here. These order books are empty, guys. Like, these order books are not that thick at all. Put on a 1 day here. These order books are not thick. So what does that mean? That means you don't need much selling for this thing to drop. Like, let's put it in perspective here. This is a drawing tool. Look at how thick the orders were there. Even down here, very thick on Binance. Look at here. Empty. I mean, can you guys see the visual difference? I mean, we got nothing over here. Even down here, I mean, look at how many orders back when we hit our low in 2022. I mean, we were stacked upon stacked upon stacked. Compare that to where we're at right now. I mean, it's like a ghost town over here on limit orders. And then Coinbase here, let me see if I can shift this a little bit. Let me clean this up here, put on 100. 100 max bounds. Try to get this even more. Do 300 max bounds. Here we go. We see here, this can load. Moral of the story is there's not much selling happening. The problem is that there's not much support there, right? You guys have heard me talk about this. Definitely the regulars that have followed me. You guys have heard me talk about like what the order book means, how it means it's a gauge of resistance, it's a gauge of effort. The more orders, the more effort you need to push price in that way. The less orders, the less effort you need to make the same amount of move. So I don't necessarily think there's that much selling happening right here. We saw more selling probably here and here. It's just that there's nobody that's here to kind of support the bid. Like look once again, here's Coinbase. Look at how many orders down at the low. Look now. Empty, 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 empty. So once again, I don't think it's an influx of selling. I mean, of course, there's more selling than buying happening, but it's not like there's this massive amount of selling that we've never seen. It's that the order books are thin as can be. So if you're selling into a thin order book, what does that mean? A little bit of money can make a big move. So I think that's kind of exactly what we're seeing right now. Let's see. Also, in terms of the time and speed of the selling, do you think it's selling off faster than older sell-offs, or we bounce faster this time? I don't think the speed is catching my eye in any manner. I don't think anything about the speed of selling is unusual. I think it's normal. I mean, this move right here, that's been quick and fast. But once again, when was the last time we saw a quick and fast move like that? Sure enough, right here. Let me see if I can take a screenshot of this and share it. Put it right over here. I can take a screenshot here. Let's put it right here. You guys can see it's a very similar move. I mean, look at that. Two just large candles. I mean, you can't even make that up. You literally can't make that up. Fake out here, fake out here. Trend line there, trend line there. Two large, just, you know what to call them. Just down in the ground. So, no, I don't think the speed of selling is anything that's like, surprising me. I think at this point, if we're nearing this bear market low, or just we should call it a trend, forget about the markets, market this, market that. This makes sense because look at what happened. Look at the speed of the selling basically when the low was put in. I mean, this hit 17K, then yeah, sure, 3-4 months later, Bitcoin went to 15. But if FTX never happened, this would have never happened, in my opinion. Bitcoin would have just done this and started going up from there. This is kind of in a race. This was all from FTX. So, yeah, hopefully that makes sense. In the stock market, the last domino to keep an eye on, I don't have anything that comes to mind, to be honest. I mean, the stock market definitely looks shaky, but at the same time, it's like last time the stock market tanked, guess what? Bitcoin bottomed before the stocks. So the riskiest, you guys should write this down. The riskiest assets get sold off first. Don't forget that. Riskiest assets get sold off first. Look at others. Didn't make a new high here back in August. Look at Bitcoin. Made a new high here back in August. Why? Riskiest assets were getting sold off first. So yeah, Bitcoin and crypto is getting sold off first. That probably does mean the stocks are going to follow to some degree. But I don't necessarily believe that means that, it's going to be perfectly correlated with stocks from here on out. Does XRP have a long, like 3,000-day trend line? It does not. No, because it has not grown in that way. It's done upwards moves and then sidewards consolidations. Bitcoin's been more on a trend growth. XRP is not. Could you see it bottoming out around 64, 65? Well, let's take a look here because, yeah, obviously I think we can see that happen. But once again, you guys just saw me, sit there for 15, 20 minutes, explain why this area is high probability for a low. Not even high probability. It needs to be a low, or else I think we're screwed. I think we're screwed. And sure enough, yes, it's about, I'd say that the level starts at about 64K and it goes down to about 55. So once again, I'm fine to be wrong here, guys. That's part of the journey here. But I have to stick my head out somehow. I can't just sit here and twiddle my thumbs like some people do. You guys just saw the evidence of why I'm saying this. I think Bitcoin should bottom in this circle. Because if it doesn't, I just explained why we got a big problem on our hands. So it's like, you got to stick your head out here and just hope for the best. Because if not, it's like, okay, you took the chance. You took the chance. And if you see acceptance below 55, then, you sell out all of your entries that you put right there. I think that's how I'm going to approach it. It at least makes the most logical sense based on probability, right? When I made that post back in 2023, it wasn't easy, wasn't easy at all because look at what the chart looked like. All we saw was down only. But I sat there and I had evidence, had a lot of evidence, and, I couldn't ignore the evidence. And that's the same thing I'm doing right now. I have evidence. I just explained the evidence. I'm not going to ignore the evidence. If it doesn't work out, that's fine. We're playing by probabilities here. I'm aware that you can never be 100% accurate. But probability is surely in the favor of at least, at minimum, something like this. And then maybe, we're going to break this trend line and go lower. So that's really how I'm looking at this all. Do you think there's still a chance for XP to revisit 180? Absolutely. Yeah, I do think it'll revisit 180, but we got to first, see when the selling tapers off. Which, based on my analysis here, Bitcoin's got about another 15% max before we see at least a month to 2 month sustained revival. If not a multi-year, low. With the order book so thin, wouldn't that make you worry even more about holding the 58K trend line of VWAP? It's a good question. Yes, the main thing I'm missing here in this combo is me seeing a bunch of orders stacked here, right? But that doesn't mean that they won't show up. And what that also doesn't mean is that when you have such a thin order book, like we have right now, guess what? It works on both sides. So yes, we don't have a bunch of, stuff sitting down here, but at the same time, we got nothing all the way back to 95K. So all you need is a shift in kind of participation. We get a shift in participation. As easy it was to send it down here, it's going to be even easier to send it back up. Because as of right now, I mean, there's, this heat map's not even showing anything above Bitcoin all the way up to 100K, So yeah, great question there. And I'll be transparent. That's the one thing that this scenario is missing. If we had a bunch of orders stacked where I'm kind of telling you guys, I'd be like 95% confident. But, there's still enough for me to say, okay, let's let's at least irk on the side of the probability of what the chart's showing. What's your planned strategy for accumulation? Wait for it to hit the 3,000-day trend line or take a risk and dip into 5 to 10% of your planned accumulation? Like I said, at this rate right now, unless the low was just put in at 67K, I'm starting to stack bids. Probably do 65, 62, 60, 58, 55. Whatever gets hit, gets hit. And like I said, even if we come back down here in the next week or two and we just do this, and I'm analyzing flow, I'm analyzing sentiment, I'm analyzing what happened down here. And if I'm not confident about holding those positions, no problem. I'll take profit right there. And if we just slice right through, which I give a very low probability, and we slice below 55K, then I'll just take the, probably averaged out loss of 7-8%. It's an easy thing for me to take there. You check XRP order book. Yeah, I could take a look at that, but it's not. I don't know if it's really, nothing really fun to look at over there. I don't believe. What's your opinion on the percent chance that Bitcoin breaks the trend line? I'm giving it a percent chance right now. I'm going to say that there's about a 25% chance that it breaks the trend line. There's a 75% chance that it holds. Because I don't think Bitcoin is cooked yet. Everything tells me that this, there's not enough here to say Bitcoin is just screwed. But once again, we get under that trend line, my probability meter of Bitcoin being cooked for some time is it's gonna spike. It's gonna really, really spike. I'm shaking even more. What do you see us at the end of 2026 if you had a guess? All right, eyes closed. Once again, I'm not the guy who does these predictions, but eyes closed. We're gonna probably see something like, let me clean this all up over here so you guys can see what I'm drawing. Eyes closed. If we're gonna see something here, I think it's gonna be something like this. To be completely honest, that might be shifted a little quicker. But that's, if I'm had to take a guess, I'm thinking that. But once again, you guys aren't going to hold me to this. You know, that's not, I'm not in the prediction of making a multi 6 month prediction. But XRP 6000, not financial advice. When it looks like it's the most cooked, that's when it's the bottom. Blood on the streets. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. What about a Bitcoin flash crash? I mean, I'd consider this a flash crash. Sure, if you zoom in, it's been a slow grind down, but you know, we're teetering on the description of a flash crash right here. I would consider. But yeah, so any other questions you guys have about that, then we'll look at a few other things here. But for the most part, you know, how long has it been? Been going for about 30 minutes here, 35 minutes. And I hope you guys get the gist of what I wanted to share. You know, and I hope it makes sense to you guys. Because once again, I'm not talking out of my ass here. You know, it's funny because what I'm doing is I'm using the same thing that worked last cycle. You know what I mean? Not many people can share that they predicted the low, you know, and they got it as evidence here with clear levels back in at the 16K low, 15K low. You know, I was fortunate enough to have that type of confidence back then, and it'd be wrong for me not to at least try to apply that same type of analysis to where we're at now. Um, you know, and that's kind of what I'm doing. So let's see here. To me, it's a flash crash given the reduction of volatility in the asset. Yeah, it's a slow grind down, that's for sure. Can you check hype? Sure. Take a look at hype. Hype, obviously, you know, good looking chart. Very, very good looking chart here. And let's see if we can get something with some volume here. Crazy how hype's still not on Binance. I mean, too bad I don't have a clean. Oh, we got perp hype. But yeah, I mean, we see hype here. Not much to say other than it's strong. You know, it's obviously strong, and I mean, if I'm gonna put a guess on it, hype's not going below this. That was its low. Hype goes below this if Bitcoin breaks the 3,000-day trend. How about that? You look through the CC chart. What's the CC chart? Let me know what that is. Is that true that Trump alts sold? Happy if true. I'm not too sure. And honestly, I don't really care because they haven't done anything good for the space. Is there any way of telling what XRP price will be at when it Bitcoin's in the 64 to 55? I mean, logically, it's going to be at about $1. I think it's going to be at about $1. Someone here says Bitcoin Cash, kind of interesting. Funny enough, I saw that the other day, and sure enough, it is definitely interesting. Because look, it didn't make a new low, but it's not really a coin I'd want to get interested in at this moment. You know, not really a coin I want to get interested in. But all right, so last thing I want to share here, a few other things, but let's take a look at liquidations. What I do want to share, and this is something I've used a lot, guys. We've had over 1.5 billion long liquidations on Bybit, OKX, and Binance over the last 7 days. And what I want to share here is, look, we have way less liquidations as the 131 low. It's the 131 drop. We go over here. Okay, what's the 131 drop? Well, the 131 drop is when Bitcoin has first leg down here. This produced a lot more liquidations than this. So what does that tell us? It tells us that the juice is drying up. The fuel for those quick moves, like, you know, it's drying up. Because look, price is now down at 66K it hit. liquidation amounts. What do we call this? Liquidation divergence. Liquidations are lower, but price went lower. It usually should be liquidations are higher as price goes lower, but no. Price just put in a new leg low. Liquidations are low at we're talking 25% of the size that they were back then. So what does that tell me? It tells me that we are looking for some type of local low. The ingredients are showing up that there's some type of local low, at least forming. That might not be the local low that hits, this level that I'm talking about here. It might not be the low that hits our trend line, that hits, everything that we've looked at here. But it is definitely a local low that could potentially do something like consolidation phase, then we go lower, maybe a push higher, then we go lower, or a little bit lower, then we go higher, and then come back down. But either way, the juice is drying up, okay? Let's keep that in mind here, guys. The juice is drying up. And yeah, here's just another view of what I was just sharing just on Bitcoin. We could see liquidation amount about what is this, about 30 million here on Bitcoin, just about 70 million. So Bitcoin alone has got about double the liquidations on the last leg lower, despite price going lower. So we could see up here, down here, divergence. And you guys have seen me use this. This is probably about an 85% accuracy. Every time I've seen something like this, it's usually always hit. So yeah. Other than that, I had a post go a little bit viral 2 days ago. It was about what are we on here? Okay, it was about Binance and their selling. Look at Binance's selling here, guys. They have market sold 18,000 Bitcoin over the last 7 days, guys. 18,000 Bitcoin. At current prices, 18,000 Bitcoin is 60, let's see what this is, $1.2 billion of Bitcoin sold at market on Binance. Guys, that's more than double all of the other exchanges combined. Binance is selling relentlessly over here. People love that. Got like 1,300 likes, which in these conditions was pretty rare. But yeah, I wanted to bring that up because guess what? It really hasn't changed. Binance still showing the most amount of selling down here. Perps as well. So nothing surprised on that front. Something else I wanted to share here, guys, is we are starting to reach a very skewed order book on the global bid and ask. You guys remember when this hit? I said, okay, this is technically a bullish time when this first hit. I said, anytime we've seen this threshold hit, it has marked a low in this cycle. And then once we were at kind of this area here, on my streams, I was saying, all right, this is showing us a shift in behavior. Despite, I remember using an analogy. I said, despite a very thin and easy path forward, people aren't taking it. I used the analogy of like a forest, a very cleared out forest, path forward. People don't want to walk through it. It's exactly what I was saying here after this didn't really give us the bounce that we saw back then. Very skewed order book, but nobody cared. Bulls didn't take advantage of it, But now we're starting to see a skew back up to the highest level we've seen since early 2024. So 38K. This is something I'll continue to keep eyes on because at the end of the day, this is kind of back to the person who asked me the question about the order books being thin. They are thin, but it depends on how thin they are compared to the asks. Are bids still greater than asks? And this is showing us, yes, they are. So this is still a positive sign. I'd like to see this continue to stay high and even get even higher if price does end up going lower in the near term here. And then one other thing is look at the fear and greed index. I'm not big on this at all, but it's pretty obvious. I mean, most amount of fear we've seen in, 3 years. So, most of the time lows have got put in, at least when we're in deep red, and we're in deep, deep red right here. So, it's not something we should really ignore. What's your next cycle top predictions? Honestly, I'm not going to even say anything just because I think right now I'm more concerned on whether Bitcoin is actually going to continue to survive the next few years or we're just cooked. So once that's figured out, I think we can talk about cycle tops. Your expectation for XP in the very short run, further downside to 1. I think that, we could bottom around 120, see something back up to maybe 160, 170 if Bitcoin cools off here. But I do think ultimately $1 at this point, it just seems inevitable, unfortunately. And I mean, just an annoying scenario with XRP. Are you a CME gap guy? Wouldn't consider myself one, but if you're saying something about it, let's take a look at what you're saying. Okay, interesting. Well, considering every single gap has been filled in history, that kind of proves the scenario that we probably will see a retest of that low. Even if prices go lower. So at this point here, this kind of adds a little bit to thesis here. I think, we're either going to continue this downtrend down to that 55 to 63, 64, which I think that's a lower probability to do right now. Or we do see something like this and then come back down like this in maybe a month or so. I think that makes more sense. So yes, absolutely. I mean, that'll get filled. So they've never not got filled. Have a position trap from there. Well, if you're on leverage, I'm not going to give you advice on that. But if you got a spot, then yeah, I mean, at some point it will most likely hit that. It's never failed. It's never failed. Is it because they keep most of their reserves in Bitcoin, need to sell to honor non-Bitcoin withdrawals? No, that's not true. Not true at all. I'm not going to call people out, but I saw somebody post that, and guys, it's not true. Don't listen to people like that. Hate to say it, but no. They do not keep their reserves in Bitcoin. You're depositing a coin, they're keeping in that coin. They don't have enough liquidity to be able to constantly be transferring and selling. They'd be basically controlling the market, which I'm not saying that they don't control the market, but no. They're definitely not selling people's crypto and putting it in Bitcoin. It's not happening. Do you think Saylor has to go in order to get a healthy market? I do think that. But that's not going to happen unless Bitcoin's at like 10K. And at that point, I mean, that's going to just, that wreck the market. I don't know what a future of Bitcoin looks like at that point. So I don't even know. Saylor's the worst thing that happened in the space. People didn't want to believe me when I said that stuff. It was the worst thing that happened in the space. I mean, to be honest, when I posted these two charts 2 nights ago, I didn't think this one would go crazy, and sure enough, that one got 300,000 views. I thought that this one would go crazy because this was a good thing. I used some Python code here to take every single one of Saylor's purchases and apply it to gold. And sure enough, if he would have done the same exact thing but for gold, he'd be up 40 billion right now. 40 billion. Right now he's down like 3-4 billion. So anyone who thinks Saylor is a savior or Saylor is, this god, I mean, he already proved himself he's not. Even if this turns out okay and Bitcoin's at 300K in 5 years, it doesn't matter. He already failed. In my opinion, he already failed. If you start buying Bitcoin at 10K and you manage to go negative and Bitcoin's still at 60K, you screwed up. Screwed up. I'm building a dashboard for CME Gap Track. Maybe we can collab. Yeah, hit me up. I don't know if a dashboard might be a waste of your time, to be honest, though. You could just build an indicator. Which I had an indicator, but I think there was some... I built one back then, but it was like something happened to it. Let's see. Interesting. I'm not sure where it went, but yes, I had an indicator, but Bitcoin gaps indicator. I don't know, it didn't really work. Well, it detected this one. Oh yeah, I don't know. So 1 to 2 weeks to confirm we're indeed cooked. Well, we can't say that. No, it's not 1 to 2 weeks to confirm we're indeed cooked. It's, it's how fast we get down there if we do. You know what I'm saying? Like, we could do that just right now, which I think that'd be a little bit more concerning. I would like to see something like this, or at least something like this, before we do that. So I give it 2 months to know if we're cooked or not. So when I made that post earlier, that's just what I was referring to. I made this post. What was it? Right here. It will likely decide the years to come. Honestly, that's exactly why you guys saw the evidence. Why? Because Bitcoin bottoms out here, great. The next few years look good. Bitcoin loses this, the next few years look questionable. So is the move waiting to see how we react to the trend line before taking a position? For me, it isn't. Because I'm aware that Bitcoin is a large asset, and I'm aware that nothing has happened here. We got to realize, guys, Luna, Terra, or Three Arrows Capital, Terra Luna, FTX, nothing, right? So we don't have like this massive fear thing happening. So no, I'm not waiting down there. I'm layering bids. Probably I'll do 5 layered bids, maybe 6 to 7 layered bids, all the way down to about 55K. About 55K. So hopefully that makes sense. I'm getting all these alerts. XRP moving down 3%, moving up 3%. I mean, just crazy amount of volatility. Just ridiculous amount of volatility happening here. Well, yeah, so let's see. What's this one? F moving up 3%. Crazy stuff there. What is cooked? Could you define? Yeah, cooked is Bitcoin at like cooked is Bitcoin at like 20K, 30K. Bitcoin down here. I'd consider that cooked. Bitcoin goes down there, guys. I'm telling you, Bitcoin failed. It failed. It failed. It failed. Something happened behind the scenes. Something failed about Bitcoin. We don't want to get down there. Would it be like crypto dead, or just wait long time to get back? It would be most of us thinking crypto is dead, and there's some slight chance that it revives. Because at the end of the day, guys, we have to realize one thing. And this is probably what I'll end it with, unless we want to cover other things. Crypto is dying in a way. You got to realize it's dying. But it's dying in its current form. It's dying in the form of people thinking that it was, just a way to make money, thinking it was this get rich quick scheme, thinking that, it was gonna change the world forever, and all these coins are gonna do all these awesome things. That version of crypto is dying. It's just like a person who goes through a, emotional death, where a version of them, or a phase in their life is ending. There's a phase of crypto that is dying. And I think that phase started right here. That phase started here, and it's been like that since here. And I think that it's dying right here, and it's going to be a dirty death. We got to realize that, crypto can't just be this let's, go up every few years and not do anything good for the world. It can't do that anymore. And this is the problem here, guys. Not enough people believe in the tech anymore. Why? Because we've had thousands of coins launched that we're going to change this, do that. And we sit back and we say, what coin is actually doing something valuable in the world? None of them. None of them. There might be a few that have some hope still. But over 8-9 years, nothing has actually fulfilled that vision. So yes, crypto is dying right now. And we have to just, be prepared for 2 different types of death. The type of death where Bitcoin does bottom here, I think, is where alts will continue just to, alts do, Bitcoin does this, alts do that. 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 Hopefully that makes sense. Like that's the type of death that's going to happen if Bitcoin does bottom here. And that's not every single alt. Don't get me wrong. It's not every single alt. They're not all going to die, but a lot of them are dying. And they're never going to come back. They're never going to come back. Why? Because this market can't just be filled with greedy people that think they could just make money trading, or not trading, investing on vaporware. The stock market's fine to be greedy. Why? Because you're trading companies. You're trading things that are providing solutions to the world. They're providing a product. They're providing a service. None of these coins are doing that. None of them. And it hates me to, I hate to say it, but it really is a true, it's a true thing. So yeah, you know, honestly speaking, at this point, is there anything special about the XRP chart, or is it just like the rest of them now? It's just like the rest of them now, unfortunately. There's nothing about that chart that's like, wow, it's holding this special level. It's unfortunately not now. Can clarify act tokenization, revive it. It can revive a part of the market, but I don't think it could ever revive all of the market, or only for the money. It seems it is, it very much is. So yeah, well, I think that was a good stream. I hope you guys enjoyed that stream. If you don't already subscribe, definitely hit the subscribe and like this stream. Like I said, I'm planning to do these once a week. And over the next month to 2 to 3, I'm gonna be launching a platform. Not 100% sure, but very high likelihood. And the platform is gonna be with one intention. It's gonna be number one, to share everything I've learned in the deepest manner that people have asked me, hundreds of people have asked me to do. But more so, it's going to be in the manner that if you're still sticking around, let's, get in a mindset. Let's get in an action of making money in this market with the only way you can, which is trading. I share a lot of stuff here on Twitter, right? Share a lot of things. But I wouldn't consider myself this heavy trader type, analyst like a lot of people do. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of people just share like very simple trades. I share very detailed stuff, which that is my edge. I think that's how I grow my account. I share unique stuff, right? But the one thing that I haven't really shared and helped people with is trading, extracting money from this market. People joining my stream and we were all short from up here and we rode the shorts down. That's really how you're gonna make money in this market now, guys, right? I've said this a lot. You're not going to make money buying and holding anymore. You'll make some, but it takes a long time. If you want to be involved in crypto, you got to learn how to trade. And my platform is going to aim to, really advance the ability for people to trade with some cool stuff. So we'll see what happens. No promises, but I'm still walking down that line, and it's something that I've had hundreds and hundreds of DMs about. So there's a want for it. So yeah. Keep you guys updated on that. But yeah, other than that, we just need some quantum FUD. Yeah, exactly. Bitcoin sub 50K. If you just join in, watch the beginning of the stream, you'll get a good answer for that one. Awesome, Dom, boss. But yeah, overall, as usual, appreciate you guys. Let's see if there's anything else I wanted to cover here. No, this was pretty funny, honestly. It was very, very funny. Pessimism grows about the crypto's function. But yeah, I think that I covered everything I wanted to here, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed the stream. Like I said, I think it's a very straight to the point, effective stream. If you just joined in, definitely watch the beginning of it, because I think, this might be one of those streams that we look back in a year and a half and it was like, wow, that one was a powerful one. So we'll see. We'll see. As usual, I'll keep you guys updated on what's going on here, but was planning for at least one stream a week, and glad to see it looks like we had the most amount of viewers today than we've had in many, many months. So, hopefully people are, coming to acceptance about the way that this market is right now, and, realizing that gotta look on the bright side of things. And I'll leave you with the bright side of things. If you're going to be involved in this market, gotta learn how to trade. Gotta learn how to trade. It's that simple. So, hope you guys have an awesome day, weekend. See you guys on X, and make sure you subscribe, hit that like on your way out, and I'll see you guys soon.